And then there is also, because what is most commonly thrown out, we don't really have, well, from the Protestant perspective, one thing that does come out sometimes is, well, you know, Mary must have been lonely, and, you know, she needed the company of her husband, and, you know, that's kind of, that's later stuff. In the times of arranged marriages, people didn't love each other that much. You know, it was not the same type of a relationship where, you know, the concept of, you know, falling in love, my soulmate, that's more or less a recent development. That the oldest form of marriage was based on arrangement. And, you know, the goal in your marital relationship was that you didn't kill each other. You know, you grew to like each other, become friends. You know, but so that kind of the need for, you know, a physical aspect, that's putting our own psychological stuff on a reality that's 2,000 years old. Different. And then, since that's not going to go anywhere, then they point to, well, in the Gospels it says, your mother and your brothers are here. And St. James, the first bishop of Jerusalem, one of the 12, he is known as the brother of the Lord. Okay? According to the tradition of the church, I would say really an old tradition, this is based on a couple of different possibilities. Firstly, that there was a closeness. At this time, family units were not just mother and father and kids, but consisted of extended families, including cousins. And sometimes this group, they were not, they were what we would call like a clan, a family clan. And they would live all in houses that were either connected, they were all in each other's business. I mean, it was really tight-knit, meaning that you wouldn't get into things like, you know, oh, this is my second cousin, once removed by, you just say, that's my brother, he's a moron. But it was an easy, you were family. So that's one possibility. One of the more, I guess, the traditions that is established actually through the gospel, this proto-evangelium of James, is that Joseph had children from his first wife. And that is a tradition which is actually emphasized also in the gospel story. There are a couple of times that Jesus is referred to as the Son of Mary. Okay? That is not nice to say. Because it means that there are others who are not the Son of Mary, but they're the son of Joseph. So this would be done in a village setting as a way of differentiating between Joseph and Mary's children, who would be called sons of Joseph, and the child by Joseph's second wife. He would be called the son of Joseph's second wife, aka Mary. That's one thing. Then there is another very clear example. Jesus, on the cross, did one very beautiful, beautiful thing for his mother. He called his favorite disciple, John, and he told him, "This is your mother." If there were other siblings, you don't do that. Because according to Jewish law, when the eldest child dies, number 2 becomes number 1. And so this would be something that would be, and Jesus, although he does definitely have his issues with Jewish law, these are familial customs that he would not break into, that he would not violate. And so these are very important gospel indicators that show us that Mary did not have other children, at least not biological children. And the oldest tradition of the church, well, backs that up. Now, I also spoke about Mary's connection to the temple. One of the experiences of the early Christian church, and Mary, as we see in icons such as icons that don't even really respect the gospel tradition. So here we have an icon of Jesus' ascension into heaven, and there is Mary. And in many icons of Pentecost, you'll see the apostles assembled and Mary in the middle. So she, although not in the gospel story, she wasn't placed in these events. She was present. She was present according to what the church said from generation to generation. And a part of this was because there was a unique reality within Judaism. We know the people of Israel were called by God for a couple of reasons. To be His people exclusively, and that He would dwell among them. And that dwelling place He would indicate to them and tell them how to build it, how to decorate it, what to use. And that, of course, is the temple in Jerusalem. The temple in Jerusalem was called, in the time of Jesus, it was called the house of God. But it was also called the footstool of heaven, because God could not be contained in the building. Since He was in the heavens, He was everywhere, that Israel could lay claim to the lowest part of His being, which would be His feet. And so the temple had this connotation for the people of Israel. The presence of God, the Holy of Holies, and the focus of all Jews throughout the world, wherever they lived. Was it in India, in Africa, in Northern Europe? They all looked to Jerusalem. And Jews still pray in the direction of Jerusalem today, because that was that one place where heaven met earth. And it was by God's will. Now, after the resurrection and ascension of Jesus, after Pentecost, the apostles went out and they began to evangelize, focused primarily on Jewish communities. And so they went to these communities and they began there and then reached out to other Gentiles, non-Jews, who were living in the towns that they visited. But they figured that because Jesus was the Messiah, the fulfillment of the promise to the Jews, that they should begin within the Jewish communities, within the synagogues. Synagogues, just to kind of reiterate this, because I know sometimes the comparison is made that the temple and the synagogues are like cathedral and parishes. You know, the cathedral has the tabernacle, it has the presence of God, and the churches also have the tabernacle and the presence of God, the Eucharist. That wasn't it. Literally, synagogues were schools of Jewish religion. And actually in Yiddish, they're called shuls, which is German for school. And that is because there they studied and argued and taught and learned their prayers, always focusing on Jerusalem, because that was the one place that had God's presence. In the community, in the synagogue, it wasn't the same. Now, so that temple in Jerusalem was extremely important for the early church. Indeed, the apostles, when they traveled to the Holy Land, when they came to Jerusalem, they went to the temple. They prayed there. It was, after all, Jesus was the fulfillment of the promise of the God of Israel, who had erected that special place in the midst of His people. what happens? Well, in around the year 70, Jerusalem is destroyed. The Jews had begun a revolt against the Romans, and this revolt continued on for years and years. And the high point of that was in Masada, where the last of the warriors committed suicide in mass. And the Romans were tired of dealing with the Jews who kept on fighting against their control over the people. And so they decreed that all Jews had to leave the city of Jerusalem, and they could not live within a perimeter of 50 miles of the city. And so, because of course the city was a holy city, and so, and we all know how religion can get and incite people into fanatical acts. Well, that was definitely the case at that time. And the Romans renamed the city, and they erected a temple right on the spot of the Jewish temple. And they made sure that the place was as desecrated as it could be by literally bathing it in pig's blood. So they made sure that the presence of God was gone once and for all. The ark was never spoken about again. All of the things that were held in the temple, such as the Ark of the Covenant, the manna, the rod of Aaron, the law, the commandments of Moses, the stone tablets, the cherubim that were ordered by God to be depicted there, disappeared. Never to be seen again. What did that do? Well, that for the people, the Jewish people, it created, morally it completely destroyed them. And it took away their focus, their spirituality, and it completely disoriented their sense of divine space, of where is God. Literally within Judaism from that time on, there is an awareness that God has abandoned us. We really messed up.